And the whole point of a record label is to take the music assets and make money out of them. If you're young and you're not getting signed and you're like, well, I'll just kind of put it out on my own label, like, well, is the music good enough to go out on your own label if it's not being signed? You should still do a self-release, but probably not like, I'm going to start a full-blown record label and try and sign lots of other artists.
In this episode, I'm speaking to Nick Sadler, who is the author of The Label Machine, and he's going to teach you everything there is to know about starting, operating, and running a successful record label. And there's so much to learn about the organizational workflow, the legal side of things, the planning process of releasing music from other artists, and so much more. But Nick breaks it down in such simplicity using tools he's built himself using the power of AI. This is a fascinating conversation, so I'm going to say no more. I'm going to let Nick do the talking and make sure you grab a copy of The Label Machine on Amazon to show your support. Honestly, mate, I have so many questions because I think the modern day artists, especially in the rap and the R&B hip hop scene, they have these outlandish goals of, I want to start a label. But I think they really mean, I want to be an A&R. They want to spot talent, nurture it, bring it under their own umbrella, potentially earn some royalties off it. But they have no idea about the systems and the infrastructure that's involved in running an imprint and actually putting out a discography and a catalog for multiple artists. So what I want to talk with you today is like how an actual label should be built. What is the machine behind the system that you and your clients work with to actually grow a foundation for an imprint? So can you give us a definition to start with? What is a record label in your eyes, and what is the function that they do?
All right. So, by the way, thanks for having me on here. I love what you do, bro. So I'm pretty excited to share this. So a record label, there's so many different ways of breaking it down. But a really easy way of thinking about a label is it is the business, branding, and distribution machine around music. And the whole point of a record label is to take the music assets and make money out of them. So it's very much a business in the traditional sense. Businesses are there to make money. It's the whole point of them. They're there to exploit the master copyright. Much in the same way publishers to do the same thing, but they're working with different material. They're working with the masters. So if you don't have your business sorted out, so all your admin, your metadata, all that kind of stuff sorted out, if you don't have your branding, so people can identify you, you can connect with your fans, and you don't have an efficient way of distributing your music and also distributing your marketing material around that music, well, you don't really have a proper record label business. And those are the three things you really need to get on top of to have a successful record label.
I love that definition. That's super concise. You said business, branding, and distribution.
BBD.
Nice acronym. I started a small SoundCloud label with a business partner years ago, and we did probably everything wrong one could potentially do wrong. Contracts weren't watertight. We didn't have the rights for certain things. We weren't checking samples. So can we roll it back to that very beginning as you sketch out with your mastermind students, and your members of your Label Machine program, what are the absolute fundamental building blocks one needs to get going? You mentioned an LLC or limited company. What will be that next step? Where do you go from there at the very, very, very beginning?
Yeah, so get an LLC or a limited liability company if you're based in the UK. The next bit is getting your domain names and your social media handles on lock, which tie in with your identity and your branding and your record label name. So making sure you've got that. And it's really key as well to have, if you want to come across professionally, have consistency. So you come across a label, right, or an established brand, and you go on their social media or you go on their website, the handles are all exactly the same. Even so, I applied it to my own business, Label Machine, right? You want to find anything? The Label Machine is thelabelmachine.com. Instagram is @thelabelmachine. TikTok is at the label machine, Facebook at the label machine, the label machine. And I did that on purpose. The label machine half was chosen. So that's why it's called the label machine. I had to use a the because there was some label machine, obviously there's like label machines for like printing and stuff out there. And that's for me, I think that's really important because you're really in the first instant acting how you want to be in 5 to 10 years, completely established and have that very professional face to your company. So that's the next step. Once you've done that, you can start looking at your branding. I always say the easiest thing to do with branding is to look around with what already exists. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just have a look at, especially if you're doing any genre type of music, just look like what kind of styles do the logos in? What kind of colors do they use? Is it dark stuff, light stuff? Because that is twofold. One thing, it's going to give you inspiration. And when you're never going to be able to copy something exactly. And as much as you try, it will always have your own individual stamp on it. But the other thing is then you're instantly going to be building something that's going to identify with a already built-in audience, right? You don't want to do too crazy of thing. Otherwise people aren't really going to understand what your branding or your music is or what your identity is. So I go through the branding process, come up with that, and then, build your basic website around your logo and your colors. Once you're at that point though, there's not too much more to do around a record label. And some people often say to me, like, what makes you a record label? Like occasionally people say, where do I register my record label to say I'm an official record label? And there isn't like a database of record labels that exists in the world. To be a record label is just a whole lot of things coming together, mainly that you have a company name, you have a website or brand associated with it, and then you've released some music through your record label and your record label owns some sort of copyright. Once you've done those things, you're a record label, whether you're small or big, and that's kind of it. So the next step, once you've done those first essential bits and secured your website name and your social media handles, is put a release out. That's the next bit. And then everything around putting a release out professionally then dictates how you are perceived in the industry as well as a label. So you want to do everything correctly around that. So we can talk about what goes into doing a great music release and things, but that's what I say is the next step is you do that. Because also until you've got some artwork for a single or an EP, what are you putting on your website? Just have random pictures of people partying or something, but once you've got your artwork, again, which is going to be branded around what sort of identity you want to have with your label, then that starts really narrowing down on your aesthetics and your visual identity as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really understated point. Thank you for bringing it up. Market research into what everyone else in your genre is doing on their look and feel, so that one day when you're manifesting to be on a festival flyer, you look in place with everyone else. You don't look ridiculously different in a bad way. You don't look very corporate or you don't look very amateur. You look like, if everyone's logo looks like Skrillex, very recognizable one, you are in keeping with that style. I think not enough people think of that, so thank you. And then also, I think there's a misconception, isn't there? That's I've released some music, I'm a somebody. I'm a businessman, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a mogul. And they put these overthinking labels on oneself. I've done something important, but really it's about making money out of it. Would you define your label as once you're actually making a revenue split for yourself as the imprint and the artist is making money? Or is there another different tangible definition of the term for you?
So I would say whether or not you're making an impact, and that impact may be that you're making money, but you could also be starting a new scene somewhere. You could be starting a scene locally in your city or your country or something like that. And, you might not necessarily be making much money. You might be plowing the money back into throwing raves or we're going to only be releasing vinyl. And so we're going to run at a loss for the first 4 years because we're just going to be putting out vinyl, but you can't get the music anywhere else. You're going to get on vinyl, but you'll be making an impact. And I think that's really how you want to kind of define your success and be real about what that impact is. going through the process of starting a company with an LLC and getting a certificate with like, Jump Up Records LLC is like, I'm a record label now, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, what are you thinking?
Founder and CEO in your Instagram bio, isn't it?
Oh my Lord. Like, honestly, you're not a CEO until you've got a team of more than just yourself. Like, have 5 people and you can be a CEO. Otherwise, you're just, and the thing is, the sad truth is, people just see through it, and and everybody will see you for what you are. And it's just a bit cringe and embarrassing. So please, if you're listening to this, if you're not a CEO, if you don't have a big company, just put founder. That's totally cool as well. Like, just be real about what you're doing.
I am blown away by this conversation. I was geeking out for real. But quickly, I want to talk about DistroKid and some of the amazing tools they offer smart artists like you. One of the best tools is called Splits by DistroKid, so that with all the other artists on this project, you can share the bag and give equity to others who paid a part in the process. Maybe you couldn't afford to give them any upfront money for their services, but you can give them a slice of the pie. Within Splits by DistroKid, track by track or across the whole project, you can set individual people with their name, their email address, and what revenue shared they are going to get. It sends them a portal login so they have their own DistroKid account and they can see all their streams in real time, what those streams are worth, how much royalties are due to be paid, and a wallet so they can cash out their earnings into their own bank account. If you want to set this up, you can do so on any of the DistroKid tiers using my link, and I'll even give you a 7% discount for signing up. And that link is distrokid.com/VIP/all-about-helping. Huge love as always to DistroKid family for sponsoring the entirety of season 3 of the All About Helping Musicians podcast. Without any further ado, let's dive back into the conversation with Nick. 100%. So let's get into the process. So let's say, because every artist wants to be a Birdman and wants to be a Lil Wayne, and they want to feel like they've curated this roster of artists, in my perspective here. So as a label owner, what is some of the process? Is it first you release your own music, then you find someone else who might be a featuring artist on your project, and you help them bring their vision to life? Or is it that you find and you A&R and hunt for new talent, and you make a proposal to them that you want to release their first single and help with their marketing? What are some of the steps an artist goes through or a label owner go through to launch their label and scale it to multiple releases?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So where do we start? I would say, first and foremost, you need to think like a business. So it's really hard because it all depends on where you're starting from, right? If you don't know, it's sort of like everything all run in parallel. So let me try and explain. So if you are starting out and you don't really know, you're not really established in the scene, or you're not recognized in your particular genre of the music industry, well, that's one thing you need to fix, right? And there's 2 ways of doing that. That's either getting on a record label that already exists, that's got a good reputation. And that's what a lot of artists are trying to do. A lot of young artists, all the way up to a major or a mini major, and that's a sound way of trying to get on there and you can instantly kind of launch your career. And I would advise, if you're under the age of like 21, I would say go and try and get on a record label, like an independent record label, with your first releases. Go and do that and just focus on the music, right? Get some releases under your belt, and also let the industry be a gatekeeper and to figure out once your music is good enough that people start signing it, like that's how you know you're making good music, right? Whereas if you're young and you're not getting signed and you're like, well, I'll just kind of put it out on my own label, like, well, is the music good enough to go out on your own label if it's not being signed? Probably not. There's outliers, but in general, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. So that would be the first thing, right? Now, let's say you've had some releases on some labels, right? And maybe you're a little bit further on in your career, maybe in your mid-20s, early 30s, or whatever. And you're like, okay, you either had a good experience or a bad experience, but you're like, I want to kind of now do it myself, right? That's when you would put music, that's when you can put music out on your own label, and once you've done it for yourself, like most of the labels that I've set up with artists, their first release is their own release. They put their own music out. they do a really good job because it's their own music and they want it to go well. And so they also tend to put like good money into marketing. They maybe do a music video, even a small budget, or, they'll put money into like a third party PR to like kind of really get the word out. It'll do well. And then if they've also released music in the industry and they've got a few contacts, they're eyeing up some artists to say, hey, you should come onto the roster as well. And they're going to go, why? And you're going to go, well, see the first release that we did. And, we got top 10, let's say it's a dance track. We got top 10 on Beatport, or, we hit the indie charts on Billboard or whatever it was, or, the single went to over 100,000 streams in 3 months. You built on that success. People then come in and do it. And then you start your A&Ring process, and that can be a combination of, depending on kind of what genre and how respected the label is, either you are, and whether or not you're going out and playing live and meeting and networking lots, right? If you're meeting a lot of artists and you're on top of what's going on and you can pick and choose, that's a great place to be, and you're like, hey, come on the label, send demos, and you're kind of working with them and then putting them on the label. Other labels work in a way where people are sending in demos as well. You can also do your A&R by searching on SoundCloud. So No Tomorrow Recordings, we used to do that. Josh was A&R, and he used to sit there listening on SoundCloud, and then any music he liked, he would reach out to them, and he'd be like, hey, we're this record label, we like your music, we'd like to put it out, this is what we will do. And then he would write a little mini marketing plan saying how much money we'll spend and exactly what we'll do and what they'll get out of it. And it was killer. They were like, great, I'll totally release on you because you're going to make a teaser trailer, you're going to put money into the Facebook ads, like there's a no-brainer. Like I should totally like sign with you guys. And and they'd look at previous releases and go, okay, I can see what you're doing. So you're doing that A&Ring. I would say as well with A&Ring, you are also feeding back on the musicality of the projects and, picking out which tunes are going to go on the EP, even like maybe doing like mixing, produce like, hey, the track needs to be shorter. You need to get, the vocals are too loud, all that kind of stuff. Like a really good A&R will go into that detail because they're then molding that sound to be in line with the sound of the record label as well. I definitely find a lot of, especially independent genre-based labels where, it's often the head of A&R is an artist themselves at that time or a successful artist, and they'll be doing that process as well. And then, getting it all right and then mastered and whatnot. So, that's that next step.
That really, really interesting perspective. I want to roll it back. So if you're in your 20s, the best advice is to jump on a label. So I want to unpack that and peel back some layers because that's deep. And so do you think there's value in giving away equity in an early release of yours in order to get a foothold and attract a new fan base? And do you think what I love about what you said, how Josh worked, is he wrote a marketing plan and a budget. That's moving with integrity. I think a lot of other people, they are all smoke and mirrors saying what they could do or what they have done without any proof in the pudding. And so there's a difference between independent labels and a difference between major labels, of course. But honest advice, no sugarcoating. Is there value in signing up for a label in your early days? And what can an artist expect?
100%. If you're under 18, you can sign to a major. Do it. Like, honestly, like it's amazing. You've hit the jackpot. Like, especially nowadays, it's like 20 years ago, you'd be like, whoa, you might get like done over, dodgy contracts. These days, majors know like that they're pretty, I wouldn't necessarily say fair, but everyone knows what they're getting into. All lawyers kind of know what's going into. There's a lot more like, we run on the copyrights, we have this, but they'll make sure they like the money they're putting in is going to be the money they're getting out. But there's a lot more flexibility. So I would say definitely sign to a major. Indie majors, yes. Now, what I would say though is, because and this is why there's no like, one, there is no just one like blueprint to follow. It's why I have the accelerated course, right? It's like tailored stuff. Because what I would say about like, if you can sign to a major, like, basically aim for that. But the other thing that comes along with that is, as an independent artist, as an independent label, right? When I'm looking to sign somebody, now, if you send me your music and I'm like, hey, wow, this is really banging. And there's lots of amazing music out there. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to go check your socials and stuff like that. And you don't have any, or it's dead out. There's nothing. I'm like, oh, have you got any music on Spotify? And there's nothing on Spotify. It's like, kind of a few red flags. Whereas if someone's like, oh, we self-released our first EP, you know, and we've like got a local following in like Brighton. I'm like, great. So they're startups. They get how to do hard work. They know there's a graft involved. They understand if I'm going to say, hey, I need this by Monday, you need to do like a shout out request on vertical video. They're going to understand and get it. Those are what make you far more signable. There's already a spark. There's already a bit of a fire going. I can be the petrol to like blow that up into a bonfire, right? And when I'm looking at all the different types of music that I want to sign, the artists that are doing that stuff are way more desirable. So in saying like, when I say just try and get signed to a label, I don't mean like just don't ever like put music out and don't like and you know don't do any marketing. You should still do a self-release, you know, but probably not like I'm going to start a full-blown record label and try and sign lots of other artists. Use the record label model to launch your career, to, you know, when you go to release your music, to make sure you're doing it professionally, you're starting 6 weeks out, you know, doing pre-saves, doing all your marketing properly, you know, use the record label model to do that and get that spark going, get that little fire going. So then when you go talk to record labels, they can see that there's something there. They can see that there's something to add to. And I've spoken to so many other head of A&Rs at record labels, and that is like the most common thing. And second to that as well is it is becoming so much more data driven as well, i.e. like just Spotify, like where your fans on Spotify, how many streams you've got, like is because it's just such a more guaranteed way, you know, if you're doing that many streams, you know, if you've got that many followers on Spotify, we know if we sign you and put something out, it's a tangible result that we're going to get at the end. So yeah, you're just sort of doing that balancing act, like, you know, making sure you're putting your release out properly, but then also just trying to get signed.
And you know I respect you, yeah, but I would struggle to honestly see, other than for the feeling like a bank, I don't know the value that a record label can bring. One, because I feel a lot of the marketing teams there, they have outdated mechanics that maybe don't work in the modern economy. Number two, I think the terms of the deal for an advance are not always the best, or if they don't give an advance, the money they're willing to put into promo, you sometimes get locked into certain stakeholders, certain suppliers of ads or PR, or I think you have to do your due diligence, I believe, in terms of my opinion, is like you need to work with an independent or a major label that believes in your vision and they're telling you their plan to bring it to life.
Yeah.
I don't always think it's like the first offer on the table. Neither is it the most expensive offer on the table, and neither is it the one that looks the shiniest, like a carrot. I think you have to pick which one is right for your situation. Where do you kind of stand on that? I'm challenging you, but
No, I totally hear you. No, and you did right. I think the thing is, you know, we're both right in that when we're talking about, we're just saying the word a record label, right?
yes,
There are such a variety of record labels. Like there's a variety of independent artists you've got is the different styles of record labels. And if you can, and then exactly going to back what you're saying is see what they're putting on the table and see, you know, are they going to be a team member? You know, are they just trying to, just they can see that you're hot, they're going to make some money out of you and spit you out. You do have to make that call. And maybe deals aren't going to be good. Maybe they can see that they can exploit you, you know, and maybe more majors are doing that. Maybe some majors are, some majors aren't. Like that's the difficulty. Like I have to say though, maybe that as a rule of thumb, if you're gone to like an underground indie label, I think there's value in that because you're going to get kudos. You're going to get kudos. You're going to be instantly integrated into a scene, which is really important when you're starting out. And most likely they're indie. They're more about like, you know, not necessarily about just trying to make loads of money. They're about supporting a scene and supporting a music, like a music scene or a particular music genre. And that's where you sort of get more partners. And, you know, that's mostly the world that I've worked in as well, you know, and that's why I can see the value in signing to labels and then being a partner and being able to bring something to the table for you.
Absolutely. Now I'm on the same page as you. Fully agreed there. I think it definitely is knowing, like you say, to infiltrate a scene find the biggest player in that scene and someone who has a cultural impact and wanting to do a release with them, whether it's a feature, whether it's a joint venture or something like that, is an amazing step. I'm with you. If you're hearing this conversation with Nick and you're wondering, how do I actually run up the streams on another artist's song? The answer is Symphony OS. And they have an amazing AI-powered Facebook ads tool that can support. It learns from your existing fan base from YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, SoundCloud, and so many other channels. You connect your data sources to Symphony OS, and then it learns from that and finds like-minded consumers with similar music characteristics and interests, and it sends your music to them as the targeted audience. It's one of the most insanely powered tools I've ever come across, and I want you to try it with a 30-day pro trial. You can use my link and get that, so you pay to sign up, but then if you cancel before the trial ends, you don't need to pay a penny. And that link is symphonyos.co/all-about-helping. There's a little bit of code in there, so make sure you grab the link from the description below. Huge love to the founder, Meg, of Symphony OS and the entire team there. Once you finish watching this interview with Nick Sadler, make sure you go and watch an interview with the CEO of Symphony. But don't leave this. Let's dive back in. I think wanted to segue a little bit, unless you have anything more to expand upon.
I just wanted to say, someone might be listening and going, great, like, well, how do I meet these people and how do I get into
let's get into it.
These labels, And the reality is you just have to go where the people are. Like, you have to go to the clubs, you have to go to the cities that they're in, find out, like, I remember when I first got to, I'm from New Zealand, and I wanted to get, I left New Zealand because I was really into dance music, and I was really into like the kind of heavier side, electro house, drum and bass and stuff, breakbeat. Just wasn't really a scene there. There was one guy making a full-time living being a DJ, and in reality, his wife, who was a head of a very successful advertising agency, was basically funding it for him. And I was like, so I got to get out of here. So I came to the UK, and I was like, right, I got to get into it. Like, so I started going clubbing, obviously, and I would sometimes go by myself. A lot of my New Zealand mates weren't really like into the dancing. And then I just started going, right, this is the music I listen to. And then when I'd see there'd be the DJs doing the parties, I would go to those parties and I'd just kind of hang out near the DJ booth and just, and then they'd be like, if they come off, I'd be like, hey, I really like your thing. Can I buy you a drink? Yeah, sure. And then like, are you from, just strike up conversations.
Love that.
I did that. Like, I went to about 4 or 5 shows. They seemed same face. And then there was hey, we're going to this after party. Do you want to come along? And I was like, yeah, cool. And then that's when I started becoming friends with the people and the DJs and stuff. And then and then went to an after party at a house after party and, doing all sorts of naughty things. And you start building a bit more of a bond. And then it just sort of progressed from there until, and I gave myself 5 years to break into the music industry when I came over to here from New Zealand. And then it was just before 4 years of getting here. And then that was when I sort of had my, my break is, Tommy Dash, who was one half of Control Z, was like a very successful breakbeat artist, and would become friends. And he was like, hey, and in fact, I just launched a sync licensing company. I'd spent like the last year putting together, like borrowed money for it and stuff. And then he said, oh, hey, do you want to start a record label? I'm going to leave hardcore beats. I've got this great track from Roughneck from the Freestylers, which that's the very first release there on vinyl. That's the first one. He's like, I've got this, like, let's put it out. Let's start a label. And I was like, let me think about it. And I was like, put the phone down. I was like, gave myself about half an hour. I was like, this is the break. Like, this guy's so well connected. If we start a label and all his artist contacts and stuff, and he could see in me as well, I was like very business, because he'd see me setting up the sync thing. He was like, this guy's going to be really good at kind of doing the business side. And that was the break, and that was Never Say Die. And, we ended up signing Skrillex and, touring around the world and, having a huge amount of success, and that kind of launched everything. So the whole long part of that story was, I had to get out there. And there were times, I remember I was walking along down in Whitechapel, and it was a cold, windy, night, raining on me. I was by myself and I was like, oh, I just wanted to go home and get into bed. And I was like, no, Nick, you're here. Go to the club, go and hang out, go and network. You know, if it's that bad, then just go home, go to bed. Like, do it. You're here on a mission. Stick to the mission, you know? And that was the one that I got invited to the after party. So like, you've just got to, if you want to get into the scene, you got to get into the scene, you know?
Thank you so much for sharing that story. That literally set my arm on goosebumps, because it's that moment, isn't it, where the universe is telling you no, but you're going to push through and get it. And it's the one that changes your life. I just wanted to add, I think the hustle of networking is there, but there's also the smart digital hustle. Like, most record labels have a mailing list. You should sign up to that mailing list so that when they put out any open invitations, you can be there. You can always spot an organizer because they look busy. When you spot an organizer, you can go and introduce yourself. I think when every record label is going to have social media, they're going to post a flyer telling you they're at that party. So get down to that party, no matter how much it costs ticket-wise. And like you said, go near the DJ booth. You'll usually find the organizer, and they'll look like an organizer.
And
buy
them a drink. Just buy them drink. Bribe people. That's what you got to do. Bribe them with drinks.
So then, from the work that you do with the label machine, like, what are some of the systems and processes you've built? Like, you gave me the privilege of seeing an AI-powered kind of content calendar, and you've built probably hundreds and hundreds of tools in your time to help them really launch and accelerate their own label. Talk to us about some of them, what they're designed for, how you started building these tools and systems. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, so the label machine, like, it actually came off the back of a mate of mine, Chris from the Prototypes, sort of said to me, where was I? I think I just started up the film. I think I just started up the film company, or maybe, yeah, I just was doing that. Anyway, I was having a conversation with him. He's like, Nick, you're so good at blowing other people up, like taking someone from nobody and then turn him into, like, you know, DJ global superstar, full-time career doing music. And he's like, why don't you turn that, like, energy on yourself? Like, how come you've never kind of put it on yourself? And I was like, I don't know, actually. It's just easier to do it for other people. And he said, you should try. And I was like, yeah, I should really. And yeah, sorry, I had set up the film thing. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a book about my whole experience and, like, how to start a label, because we started from scratch and I just had to learn. And, you know, we'd go and take our other record label bosses out and I'd ask them a bunch of questions. So had a few mentors along the way to kind of help out, but, you know, had to, like, learn the hard way. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a book that I would have loved to have read when I would have liked to have read when I started out. They just laid it all out in one kind of thing. So I started writing. So basically, that was going to be my present, my bow tie, and then bye music industry. I'm now in the film industry, like, and that was it. Which, by the way, like, if you're into music, it's very hard to leave. And that's why I'm still in the music industry today, and I'm now music and film. But, like, yeah. So I started. So I wrote the book, and then I got a book. I was like, okay, I need a book publishing deal. So I just literally jumped online and Googled, where do book publishers hang out? Because it's the same way, right? I know how this works now. I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm like, where do they hang out? You know, so how am I going to start? I don't know anyone. And then one of the Google searches came up, and it was like, there was an Eventbrite event in 2 weeks that Adobe was running for music publishers. Wow. Down in the city. And I was like, okay, I'll go to that. There'll be loads of book publishers. I can just introduce myself. And I just formed the book was called The Label Machine. I kind of grabbed all that. And so I think they must have thought I was like a label printing machine for books, because it was an industry thing. And I turned up and I was like, hey, how's it going? They're like, hi, what company? And I was like, oh, I'm The Label Machine and stuff. And it's like, oh, I haven't heard of you. And I was like, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm actually a writer, and I want to meet loads of book publishers. And she was like, "There's a split." She was looking at me like, "Am I going to kick him out?" And then she was like, No, I like your attitude. Come with me. And so she walked around and introduced me to a whole
Oh,
bunch of people.
phenomenal.
And I just started doing my spiel. I was like, "Hi, my name's Nick Sedler. I've written a nonfiction book about the music industry, how to start a record label, blah blah blah. What do you do?" They're like, "Oh, we do children's books." And it's like, "Oh, great. Have a great day." Just turn around, just instantly like you did to me. And then like just go to the next person. Like, and then I saw these three massive dudes who looked like bosses, and I was like, those guys are in the know. So I just went straight up to the tallest one. I was like, "Hey, how's it going? I'm Nick Sadler. Do my spiel." And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 calm down." And then he goes, "Colin," and he yelled at this guy, and he goes, "Come over here." And he's like, "Colin runs a music book publishing company. You need to talk to him." So I
Sick.
did my spiel with Colin. Colin was like, he runs Velocity Press, which ended up signing. He was like, "Oh, this sounds great. Let's have a
Amazing.
meeting." Then we went out for a meeting 2 weeks later, which I outlined the book. He was like, "This is awesome." Sent me a contract. We negotiated. Got my first book publishing deal. Again,
Wow.
that's how that's just get out there and find where the people you need to connect with and go and connect with them. That makes it make it sound really simple, don't I? But that's how I got the
Bro.
book publishing deal. So then the label machine came off the back of when I was reading the when one thing I found with nonfiction books, so I read Tim Ferriss's The 4 Hour Working Week, right? One thing that used to really frustrate me about it is he'd be like, and I loved his Real Practical. That's the label machine book, was really like loads of just actionable tasks to do. But I'd be sitting there holding his book down. He goes, "Now go to this website," and I'm like typing with the other hand trying to look down. I was like, this is dumb. Like you should just take all the clickable stuff and put it on a website, and you tell people in the book, go to the website for all the like functional stuff, because you do everything online these days. So I was like, okay, so that was the first iteration of the label machine, was just all the actionable stuff you need to do in the book was on the website. And so it's like educational. There are resources, so there are databases you could download. There are the contracts that I write in the book. You could have the contracts there, and there are videos that told you what each clause was and how you edit it for your own label and all that kind of stuff. And then there's a community attached to it. So that was the first iteration for like the first couple of years. And then I was just using.
Where can people get in touch with the label machine, and where can they grab a copy of the book, The Label Machine? I'd love you to plug it, please.
Just literally, if you open up Google and just type in the label machine book or the label machine Nick Sadler, I think if you just type in the label machine, just pages and pages of links. My website's there, the social media's there, Amazon's there. Well, in fact, actually, I think we've sold out. So I'm in the process of writing the second edition. So I picked up my second book publishing deal, but it's, with Velocity Press. So that's going to be coming out early next year. So I'm just updating it now, and it's getting like the second half of the book, like the whole way you market stuff, and with AI and all that, is just completely changed from like 4 years ago when it came out. So yeah, that's going to be out. But if you want to buy the Kindle version, yeah, go to Amazon, download the Kindle version. I'll tell you. Hang on, have we got much more time, or have you got to
I was
go?
like, you need to hold a signed copy for me, bro, because
I will.
I definitely
I
want
will.
one of those, please. But yeah, feel free. Honestly, mate, thank you so much. I appreciate you letting me pick your brains, like talking about the power of setting up a label, kind of scaling it, finding out how to build your own fan base, and then the infrastructure and systems start your own, bro. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me on here. We'll do it in another year's time, 100%. Thank you.
Absolutely. Get you back in a future season, man.